This is Recipe for Sleep, a podcast where we dust off very old cookbooks and let them lull us into dreamland. I'm Erin Brindley, a chef and storyteller. I'm going to read to you from an old cookbook full of recipes and stories, and hopefully it's just interesting enough to keep your mind from ruminating, but just light enough that you can let it go when sleep arrives. Tonight, we are still deep in the pages of 1894's The American Pastry Cook. We pick up where we left off, with ices and ice creams. Our author, Jessup Whitehead, shall we just call him our hero from here on out? Our hero once again gives us dozens of recipes for ices and ice creams fine enough for the finest hotel or steamboat. But he also shares his wisdom with a fictional, we assume, young owner of a fictional ice cream shop. Our hero bestows all kinds of advice on how to make this imaginary shop successful. And maybe as you begin to doze off, you can dream of the wonders and colors of a great ice cream shop on a hot summer day. Did you ever dream of running an ice cream shop as a kid? I know I did. It seemed like if it was your shop, you could eat just as much ice cream as you wanted. What a nice dream. But for now, it's time to put away anything you were doing and snuggle deep into your sweet covers. Softly close your eyes and imagine the kitchen of your mind. There are 2 cupboards there. Yesterday's cupboard for all the things that have already happened that your mind wants to chew on. And tomorrow's cupboard for all the things you're going to do or what's going to happen later. It's time to put everything away in those cupboards. Imagine closing each one. You made it to this cozy, quiet time of day where there's nothing to do but listen to me read old recipes to you until you drift off to sleep. Niagara ices. Combination of rich, yellow, frozen custard with a pink sherbet with coconut and oranges. 2 freezers required. 77. Yellow frozen custard. 1 quart or cream of milk. 12 ounces of sugar. 12 yolks of eggs. Vanilla bean or extract to flavor. Boil the cream with the sugar and vanilla bean in it. Beat the yolks light and pour the boiling cream to them. Set on the fire again for a minute. The custard will not froth in the freezer if cooked much, but should be taken off and strained as soon as slightly thickened. Freeze and beat light. 78. Orange and coconut ice. 1 pint port wine. 1 pint of water. 1 pound of sugar. 8 ounces of desiccated coconut. The sugared kind, free from oil, must be used. 4 oranges. 2 lemons. Red fruit juice or coloring. Make a hot syrup of the water and sugar. Slice the oranges and lemons small and throw away the seeds. Put the slices in a bowl with the desiccated coconut. Pour the hot syrup over them and let steep a short time. Then strain the flavored syrup into a freezer. Add the wine and coloring to make it light pink and freeze. Make the scalded orange and lemon slices and coconut cold on ice and stir them into the sherbet when nearly frozen. Then pack down to freezer to freeze the contents firm. To serve individually, place the frozen custard in champagne glasses. Spread out to make a border and the sherbet pile up in the middle. And iced pudding is no better name, although the languages containing no other for such a compound, the English have had to use it, But their case is different. They have deep-rooted respect for ancient pudding, and ice cream does not seem to be degraded by being so called. Sidney Smith, in explanation of the exact stage of his convalescence, wrote to a friend that he was past the gruel point, past panada, and had just arrived at pudding. Thackeray could write of puddings, as did Herrick, Burns, Byron even. And there is something about solid pudding in Shakespeare, but that does not help the matter with our people's association of ideas. Iced pudding is base. It is food. Ices, ice creams, are not. They are ethereal. They are delicious. Monotoo ices. Rocky Mountain Scarlet Wild Raspberries in ice and white cream. 2 freezers required. 79. White starch ice cream. 1 quart of rich milk. 12 ounces of sugar. 1 ounce of butter. 2 rounded tablespoonfuls of cornstarch. 4 whites of eggs. 1 tablespoonful of lemon extract. Boil the milk with the sugar in it. Mix the starch in a cup with a little cold milk and stir it in. Take from the fire and put in the butter and beat the mixture till that is melted. Strain, cool, and flavor it and freeze. When nearly finished freezing, whip the whites to froth and stir them into the cream and beat it with a paddle till it fills the freezer and is as light as foam and white as snow. 80. Scarlet Raspberry Ice. 3 or 4 pints of Rocky Mountain wild raspberries. 1.5 pounds of sugar. 2 pints of water. 3 whites of eggs. Pick out and reserve about 1/3 of the berries to be dropped in whole into the ice at last. Make a syrup of the sugar and 1 pint of water. Pour it hot upon the larger portion of raspberries in a bowl, then rub them through a strainer together with the syrup and use the other pint of water to help the pulp through and dry. Freeze and add the whites of eggs beaten to froth when nearly finished, and after a beating up again, drop in the whole raspberries and pack down the freezer with more ice and salt to remain till wanted. Serve the white cream in glasses or saucers with the red ice piled in the hollow middle. 81. Frozen fruit in ices. Broadly speaking, it may be said, everybody that likes fruit ices or sherbets likes the frozen pieces of fruit scattered through them as well. But there are differences, which it would be tedious to point in each case depending on the degree of sweetness of the fruit. Strawberries containing little or no sugar will freeze in strawberry water ice too unreasonably solid to be good, while sweet Tokay and muscat grapes, sweet ripe cherries, mellow pears, and the like will never become too hard because the sugar in them prevents it. The sweeter an article, whether cream or fruit, the harder it is to freeze. To keep the fruits from this too solid congealing, some of the French ways to steep them in alcoholic liqueurs, methods which we merely mentioned for information without believing them necessary to practice. In case of a peach ice, then, it may do very well when the peaches are very sweet and ripe to drop the quarters in at the end of the freezing without any preparations. But if the peaches instead are inclined to sourness, stew them in a thick syrup without breaking the quarters and drop them in the ice after first making them cold. Tahoe ices. Red grape ice and white cherries and cream. 2 freezers required. 82. Red grape ice. 5 pints of red Tokay grapes, 4 pounds. 1.5 pints of water. 1.5 pounds of sugar, 1 lemon and 1 orange, 4 whites of eggs. Select about 1/4 part of the grapes to be dropped whole into the ice last. Scald the rest in a syrup made of the sugar and part of the water and rub the pulp through a strainer together with the syrup and pour over the skins the remaining portion of water. Add the juice of the lemon and freeze as usual. If to line a mold, the whites of eggs may be omitted and a little red fruit juice or coloring may be added to make a more positive color. But for serving in glasses, add the whites whipped firm and beat the ice till smooth and foamy. Cut the orange in strips without peeling and strew them in the ice, also the reserved grapes, and cover down to freeze firm. 83. White cherry cream. 1 quart of pure, sweet cream. 3 or 4 pints of California white wax cherries. 1 pound of sugar. 1/2 pint of water. Make a boiling syrup of the sugar and water. Drop in the cherries and let them simmer in it about 15 minutes without stirring or breaking. Then strain the flavored syrup into the freezer and set the fruit on ice to be mixed in at last. Add the quart of cream to the syrup in the freezer. Freeze and beat up well. Then stir in the cherries and pack down with more ice and salt. Artificial ice made at the cost of $1 a ton. Ice cream, same price. It were a consummation devoutly to be wished. We are thinking not of the finished product after it has left our hands. Perhaps the young gentlemen who take the ladies out on summer evenings would not wish it quite so cheap, but of some easy and perfect process of freezing it, such as is condensed and summed up in the idea conveyed by that rate of cheapness. For few know how difficult it is to get the drudgery of ice cream freezing done properly. None perhaps those who have to oversee its preparation, along with a number of other skill-demanding productions for the hotel dinner. It is of little avail that we make the ice cream or custard or sherbet good and finely flavored if the transformations possible in the freezing process are not skillfully carried out. In freezing, if you know how, you can transform skimmed milk into the semblance of cream, and if you don't, you cannot prevent rich cream from transforming itself into the semblance of skimmed milk. Now, when they get through with it, all that tedious electric light subdivision, perhaps the inventors will subdivide the artificial ice machines so that ice cream can be made in every little house in some less clumsy and imperfect way than the present with ice and salt. The great obstructionists in ice cream making is the lazy yardman, second pastry cook, or other helper who ought to turn the freezer fast and beat the cream thoroughly, and we want an electrical or chemical machine of some kind to supersede him. White mountain ices. Sweet peaches and cream. Put that little lady, the schoolmarm, who once did the copying of some of these receipts, happened to be a White Mountain girl herself, and when she reached this set, she surreptitiously took the name and placed it over another set and called these something else, as if sweet peaches and ice cream was not good enough for the White Mountains, or Green Mountains either, for that matter. Red grapes indeed. Which set she chose for White Mountain ices is something that shall never be told. Who, allow us to ask, is running this? 2 freezers required. 84. Vanilla ice cream. Best. 1 quart of good sweet cream. 8 ounces of sugar. Vanilla flavoring, either 2 tablespoonfuls of the extract or a vanilla bean boiled in a little milk and the milk used to flavor. Use a freezer that will hold twice as much or more. Sweeten and flavor the cream and churn it in a pail with whipped churn until half of it is froth. Pour into the freezer and freeze as rapidly as possible. Then take out the inside beater and with a wooden paddle about 4 feet long, make like a spade in shape but narrow. Beat the ice cream about 15 minutes or until it fills the freezer. Cover down and pack with more ice and salt. 85. Peach ice. 3 pints of peeled mellow peaches. 1 pound of sugar. 2 pints of water. 1 large cupful of bright red currant jelly. The kernels of half the peaches. 4 whites of eggs. The peaches should be choice, yellow or red-fleshed and sweet. Half of them are to be cut in pieces as large as cherries, the other half cooked. Put the water, sugar, peach kernels, and half the peaches on to stew together a few minutes. Mash the fruit with the back of the spoon. Put in the currant jelly, and then press all except the kernels through a strainer. Freeze as usual. Add the whipped white of eggs to the ice, and after beating, also mix in the cut peaches. Line the molds with the cream and fill the center with the peach ice, or serve the cream in glasses or saucers as a border with the peach piled in the middle. Some points on ice cream and other ices. So I said to Johnny, said I, "Johnny, you're stuck with this miserable little ice cream saloon, and the little $75 you put in is gone skywards, don't you know? And you owe a month's rent beside. And here, at the same time, are your dollars that ought to be, and your tens of hundreds sitting along on the hotel piazzas and riding by and walking right by your forsaken little den, but they won't come in. Of course they won't. Why should they when you don't know the first rudiments of the business? Johnny, don't you remember when you used to turn the freezer for 2 mortal hours, enough sight slower than the tick of your grandfather's clock, when you ought to have been done in 20 or 30 minutes, wasting ice and salt, spoiling the cream, and wearing out me? And now you'll go up for want of knowing something. Now if you was dead, for instance, and a smart boy had this instead, it would not be this way. There are bigger resorts than this, don't you know? And some where the confectionaries and all are made under the same roof. But let me tell you, even there the extra fine creams and ices are in a sideshow and are extra charges, and more so at all commoner places until the pastry cook has uncommon ambition to shine. But you take a hotel, and that's got 200 summer people, and there's 2 pastry cooks. But after they've worked a barrel of flour a day, all shapes and other things in proportion, and the weather at that, they don't feel much like spreading themselves on fancy creams and ices. So, it's the same miserable lemon custard and vanilla custard sort of frozen any way to put it through at this hotel and that hotel. And if the people are asked to visit another hotel, they are sure to be treated to the same old thing again. Well, then they go to the cafe and fine restaurant where these things are made specialties. And that's what you ought to be doing now, Johnny, if you knew how. But in the first place, you don't have ice cream on hand half the time, and people, as they pass, say, "Oh, it's of no use. They hardly ever have any there." So they quit coming because they don't like it to be disappointed. You must keep it, if you have to make a pint at a time in a quart cup even, as you easily can if you understand it, and it positively must be always good, always tip-top, if you expect to build up a trade, and it can't be if you make it once a day in the morning and keep it all day and night, for the goodness of it and its smoothness and creaminess, but that gets away when the cream is kept long. Water in freezing will separate from everything else, so that you get a clear ice out of muddy rivers, and the water part of the vinegar will freeze and leave the acid part by itself in the center of the barrel. Just that way, your cream first gets grains of clear ice in it like sand, and by night your customers find rough chunks as big as pipe stems. for the very same reasons good cream cannot be made by letting it stand and freeze itself. It wants rapid work. Quick freezing. Now, Johnny, you begin right. Get you a stout oaken box, with a hoop iron if you can, to pound the ice small in. It will prove the cheapest way in the long run, for you must pound the ice small to do quick freezing and cheap. And no way beats pounding it with an old axe head in a deep box. You may turn your freezer 2 hours and do no good if it only has large lumps of ice just touching it with their edges. It is the salt acting on the ice and releasing the cold by melting it that causes your cream to freeze. And the quicker the melting takes place, through thorough mixing of salt in fine ice, the quicker your cream is done. And coarse salt is better than fine because it won't pack in dead lumps and because it grinds the ice away. We are not caring for strict science, only for the effects as they appear. So the quickest possible freezing is done with snow and ice mixed together. And Johnny, don't you remember how snorting mad you used to be when I would come down on you for about 2 seconds while you was seesawing away at that freezer and say, "Why in thunder don't you let the salt water out?" And when I came again and found the water out, it was, "Why in thunder did you let all the water out for?" Well, Johnny, I have no meringues in the oven now, and I'll stop to explain. Your cream never freezes much, except where the brine of the melted ice and salt touches the freezer. As the brine rises outside, you will find the freezing mark rises inside. But when there gets to be too much water, the ice rises and floats, and the bottom of the freezer begins to melt again. You want to keep letting out a little water from the bunghole near the bottom of the freezing tub, but not too much. And always keep pushing and packing the ice down around the freezer to keep it solid and touching both bottom and sides. In this way, you can do freezing in 20 or 30 minutes, better than in 2 hours. The amount of salt you want is about 1 bucket of salt to 5 of broken ice. Half fill your freezing tub with the ice first, then begin putting scoopfuls of salt with the ice, and it will work itself down. Always finish off with the top layer of salt. In order to get the little brine, sometimes in the dead of winter, when everything was too cold, I have had to pour hot water on the ice in the freezing tub to start it. These points apply to all sorts of freezers that use ice and salt. The noted cooks across the sea, who invented some of the fine ices that you are going to make after a while, Johnny, never patronized our new patent freezers, but did, and perhaps still do, their fine work with the old kind turned by hand. Cream and its substitutes. And Johnny, you don't need real cream so much as you need a thorough beating. If a man that knew how was to open next door in opposition to you, he might take milk and you might take cream, and soon you will hear customers say, "Ah, the cream next door is the best, and certainly must be made of the purest cream. You can taste it, it is so rich," when in fact it would be a foamy smoothness and delicacy that gave them that impression, while your real cream would be coarse with grains of ice and heavy with sugar. It does not make nearly so much difference how you make your cream as how you freeze it and keep it. Why you may take sweet water ice, especially white cherry ice, or peach ice will do, some kind with a sweet pulp mashed in, and make it according to directions. It will be so white and so soft and foamy. It will increase in bulk so much it can't be told from cream except by melting, which I want to say shows that it isn't the cream itself that makes the quality, since sweetened fruit juice will do so well, and better yet if mixed with cream like our cherries and cream some way back, but the method. So having prepared your cream, custard, or sherbet, put it in a freezer large enough to hold twice as much, and strive to make the ice fill the freezer when done. The greatest help but not the only materials for the purpose, is some raw but light beaten white of eggs. The French cooks, some of them, use what they call Italian meringue, which is boiled sugar syrup made of 6 ounces of sugar poured into 4 whites well whipped. If anyone who has tried has found a difference in effect between that and the raw whites, I will not gainsay their word. But Johnny, you will find the shorter way good enough, and it saves sugar from what is already generally too sweet. So when your ice is frozen, mix in the whipped whites, and if it is a patent freezer, turn it as fast as you can till you see the white forcing its way out of the freezer lid. That is if you want that sort, but it is only a demi-glace to leave the whites like the pink pearl of our Niagara ices, where the white desiccated coconut can be seen powdered through it, as it would not be if the sherbet was beaten to whiteness with egg. Save the sugar. And don't make the mistake of using too much sugar. You must make a profit, and sugar is an expense in 2 ways. In its cost at first, and then in the ice and salt, for the more sugar in your cream, the more ice it will take to freeze it. This, you know, is for common, though you want to be posted for fancy work too. When you go to Boston or Philadelphia, Johnny, you'll find them advertising Vienna ices, bombs, biscuits, glacés, etc. If made according to Hoyle, these Vienna ices have 1 pound of sugar in every quart of rich cream, and the rule for fruit ices is 1.5 pounds to a quart. Just think of it. A cupful of granulated sugar in 2 cupfuls of thick cream, and the fruit ices and sorbets of all syrups heavier than soda syrups. When these are well frozen, they are more of frozen confectionaries or candies made cold, instead of heat, than they are light refreshments. They are intended to be shaped in molds, and to have a good deal of solidity. Your rule for common ice cream should be not more than 1/2 pound of sugar to each quart of milk, and 3/4 pound to each quart of fruit, ice, or sherbet. And Johnny, though I would not write it so in a receipt for anybody, for it may seem stingy, between you and me, I think 6 ounces of sugar to each quart of milk is enough for the ice cream that is only a light refreshment that people may eat plenty of without hurting themselves. They don't want food, but frozen perfume. I got a lesson in popular ice cream making when I was a boy that has lasted me for comparison of different fellows' ways ever since at a gaily decorated tent at New Orleans on the levee and facing Tchoupitoulas Street, where their cream was sold as fast as tickets for a circus, handed cut in glasses piled high, 3 or 4 colors and flavors, and as many men freezing and beating, and as many more selling and forever yelling out, "Come up with another freezer on the red," and "Come up with another freezer on the yaller." Their cream was light and cheap and plentiful. It was late in May, and all the ice they used had come up in shiploads from the north. They didn't sit down and seesaw, and Johnny, I don't think they ever used over 6 ounces of sugar to a quart. But they had fine flavorings, and you don't think they had any real cream or wanted any, do you? Anti-bilious ice cream. And you need not go into bankruptcy either, merely because the big hotels are getting what little cream there is to be had and you can get none. They don't even get enough for coffee after all. Some restaurant keepers buy the milk, skim it for the cream, and trust selling off the skim-milked or part of it, so as to get their puree cream for freezing, not soured and moldy as country-gathered cream often is, but that plan is not predictable for ice cream for thousands at a resort. Besides, who wants cream? You see these resorts getting more crowded every year, and more hotels and larger ones being built, and that shows that the people find it pleasant living at them, but wouldn't if they had the blues and felt tired and drowsy all the time, as they would be if they were made bilious and dyspeptic with double cream and sugar. There is nothing so bad for the health and spirits as real buttery cream taken at the end of a full meal. Let the country people who have nothing to do but sleep eat the cream. But you want to give resorters light refreshment, and if your wares are well made, they will come again after they have walked and danced and rolled 10 pins. Gelatin and cream. It is reckoned quite a trick, too, to put gelatin in your milk or boiled custard, and gelatin is nice enough as far as that goes, but somehow, Johnny, I find myself always letting it alone, though I don't know what I might do in competition with others. Gelatin gives body to the milk and makes it so it can be beaten up more light and frothy, and the cream with gelatin in will not melt down so quickly. It is a good enough rule to use gelatin in milk and whites of eggs in water ices, bunches, and so forth. The effect of both articles is about the same, but gelatin is the most trouble. But you have to be very careful about the quality of gelatin you use, for if you don't look out, it will set your cream like blancmange or jelly. 1 ounce to 3 quarts is the highest you can use, and it must be well dissolved in warm milk before putting in. Ordinary ice cream. You will see some ice cream makers put raw yolks of eggs in the cream because they have found that cooking the eggs in it destroys the frothing quality. I don't like that either, and I compromise by making a boiled starch custard with scant 1 ounce of starch to each quart of milk and beating 2 or 3, or at most 4 yolks to a quart light in a deep pan and pouring the scalding custard to them, which half cooks the yolks and makes a custard that can be churned to a froth if wanted. When you make a custard that way, it saves ice to cook only half the milk with all the enriching ingredients in, and pour the other half cold to it afterwards. When you boil milk, always boil the sugar in it. That will prevent scorching on the bottom. Now, Johnny, brace up and go to work, and when you get as far as molding ice creams for party dinners, we will talk again. But that heavy iron scrapper you have got made by the blacksmith is not suitable. People of fine perceptions can taste iron in ice cream. Besides, you are liable to drive it through the bottom of your freezer and spoil all. The largest size, flexible palette knife is the best thing to loosen the frozen cream from the sides of your old-fashioned freezer. And for the beating up of the cream, make yourself a paddle of hard wood as long as a spade, but light and narrow, one that you can stand up with and have a good hold on to churn and beat with both hands. Flavoring. Lemon and vanilla are the common popular flavors, and lemon is the commonest of the two. Use of them about a large basting spoonful of the extract to each gallon of cream, remembering, however, that there is the common, the double, and the triple extract, of which latter, of course, less ought to do. When you get to doing a big business, you will have the pleasure of offering your customers a choice of as many flavors of cream as there are of soda syrups. But all flavors, except lemon and vanilla, must be used very sparingly. A teaspoonful of pineapple, strawberry, and pear, and the like, generally being as good as a large spoonful of the others, and of rose extract a few drops may do. Most of the flavorings, excepting lemon, vanilla, rose, cinnamon, and nutmeg, are made from orris root and butyric ether, which is obtained from rancid butter, and there is no wonder if the popular taste approves of them only in very small allowances. Frozen Nesselrode Pudding. Glacé Nesselrode or iced pudding. A frozen custard made of pounded chestnuts with fruit and flavorings. 1 pound of large chestnuts, about 40. 1 pint of rich boiled custard. 1 cup sweet cream. 2 ounces citron. 2 ounces sultana raisins. 2 ounces stewed pineapple. Half cupful of maraschino. 1 teaspoon vanilla extract. Pinch of salt in the chestnut pulp. Slit the shells of the chestnuts, boil them half an hour, peel clean, and pound the nuts to a paste, and rub them through a coarse sieve, moistening with cream. Then mix it with the boiled custard. Freeze this mixture, and when firm, whip the cupful of cream and stir it in and freeze again. Then add the citron, cut in shreds, the stewed or candied pineapple, likewise the raisins, maraschino, and vanilla extract. Beat up and freeze again, and either serve in ice cream plates out of the freezer or pack the cream in a mold, and when well frozen, send to table whole, turned out of the mold onto a folded napkin on the dish. The foregoing makes about enough to fill one of those brick molds that have a large and deep stamped fruit pattern in the lid, and when frozen firm, it can be sliced into from 12 to 16 portions. When chestnuts are not convenient, some of the large cafes use the ready-prepared pounded almonds or walnuts that may be bought by the can at the confectioner's supply stores, and various additions or substitutions of green candied fruits are employed to make a handsome-appearing compound without changing its general character. Should be trebled for quantity for dinner for 50. See number 320 for another variety recently added, but crowded out of place. 87. Diplomatic ice pudding. 1 quart of rich vanilla custard. 1 pint thick cream. 1 capful of French candied pineapples and cherries cut small. 2 dozen ladyfingers. Freeze the custard as usual for ice cream. Whip the cream. Put it in and freeze again. Take 2 brick molds and put in a layer of the ice cream, a layer of ladyfingers, and some candied fruit, and fill the mold that way, having ice cream for the top layer. Close with paper and the lid, and put in the freezing mixture to stay 2 or 3 hours. Manage the same way as Neapolitan and Nesselrode. 88. Bonanza Punch. Our own Rocky Mountain Punch, as made for hotel dinners for 250. 10 quarts of water. 9 pounds of sugar. 2 dozen lemons. 6 oranges. 2 cans of pineapple. 1 pint of gin. 1 quart bottle of champagne. Grate the rinds of 6 of the lemons and 4 oranges into a bowl and squeeze in the juice of all. Put on about 2 quarts of water with a lot of sugar in it, and the pineapple juice, making a hot syrup of it, and then pour it into the grated rinds and juice in the bowl to draw the flavor. Strain into the freezer, chop the pineapple and put in, add all the rest of the sugar and the water, gin and champagne, color it pink, and freeze. 89. The same, reduced for 50. 2.5 quarts of water, 2 pounds of sugar, 6 lemons, 2 oranges, 1 small can of pineapple, half cupful of gin, 1 cupful of champagne or sweet wine. Grate the rinds of 2 lemons and 1 orange, and proceed as directed above. 90. Kirsch Punch, Romaine. 2 quarts of water, 3 pounds of sugar, 4 lemons, juice only, 1 pint of Kirschwasser, 8 whites of eggs. Mix the punch materials together cold. Strain into the freezer. When nearly frozen, whip the 8 egg whites firm, mix in, and freeze again. 91. Regent's Punch. 1 quart of water, 1 pint of gin, 2 lemons, 1 pound of sugar, 1 pint of maraschino or half as much kirsch, 4 bottles of soda water, Grate the rind of a lemon into a bowl, moisten with some gin, and rub with the back of a spoon to extract the flavor. Add the lemon juice and rest of the ingredients except the soda. Strain into the freezer and freeze as firm as the spirit in it will allow. Add the bottled soda and finish the freezing. 92. Victoria Punch. 6 or 8 oranges according to size. 12 lemons. 3 pounds of sugar. 2 quarts of water. 1 pint of Angelica or other sweet wine. Half pint of rum. 8 whites of eggs. Grate the rinds of half the lemons into a bowl and add the rum, and rub with the back of a spoon to extract the flavor. Squeeze in the juice of all the fruit. Add the other ingredients and freeze. Then whip up the whites, stir in, beat up, and freeze again. 93. Cardinal Punch. A survivor of the old-time spiced wine called Bishop. The same was called Cardinal when made with the best of red wine. The specialty about it is in roasting the oranges either before or over the fire and letting them steep in good red wine, which, when thus flavored, is used either hot or cold. If to be frozen, take 1 quart of wine jelly, calf's foot or gelatin, 1 quart of claret or any good red wine, 1 quart of port, 1 quart of water, 2 pounds of sugar, 4 oranges, 2 tablespoonfuls whole cloves. Bake the oranges brown on a plate in the oven. Make a boiling syrup of the sugar and water with the cloves in it. Drop the baked oranges into it. Add the wine and let remain until cold. Cut the oranges and press them for the juice, and strain the punch into the freezer. Add the jelly or white of eggs for a substitute, and freeze. If in season for red raspberry juice, add some for a brighter color. 93A. Angelica Punch. 2 cups California Angelica wine. 2 cups hot water, a pint. 1 cup sugar, ½ pound. 1 cup stemmed raisins, ½ pound. 1 lemon. 2 whites of eggs and 2 tablespoonfuls of powdered sugar beat in. Chop the raisins. Grate half the rind of the lemon. Squeeze in all of the juice. Pour the hot water to them. Add the sugar and stir until it is all dissolved. Strain the flavored syrup thus obtained into a freezer and rub the most of the raisin pulp through as well. Add the wine and freeze. When nearly frozen, whip the 2 egg whites and the powdered sugar together till thick. Add them to the punch and finish freezing. It is like cream. Serve in stem glasses. 93B. Bisque ice creams. Ice creams with a proportion of the pulp of pounded fruit or nuts added are termed bisques. 93C. Bisque of pineapple ice cream. 1 can of pineapple or 3/4 pound. 2 cups sugar. 4 cups cream. Chop the pineapple small and put it in a bright pan or kettle with the sugar and a few spoonfuls of juice or water to dissolve the sugar to syrup. Simmer at the side of the range a short time. Whip the cream till it is half froth, then freeze it first by itself, because the pineapple added before freezing has a tendency to curdle it. Pound the pineapple and syrup through a colander and mix it with the partly frozen cream and freeze again. It can and ought to be managed to have the pineapple and syrup prepared beforehand to be cold. In making these bisques, it is best not to pound the fruit perfectly fine, but the small pieces, about like grains of wheat, should be perceptible and show that the creams are mixed with fruits and not merely flavored. 93D. Bisque of preserved ginger. 1/4 pound of either preserved or candied ginger. 1/2 cup sugar. Juice of 1 lemon. 4 cups of cream. Cut the candied ginger into very small pieces. Make a hot syrup of the sugar and a few spoonfuls of water and squeeze the lemon into it. Then put in the ginger and let it soften and impart the flavor to the syrup. Put the cream and ginger and syrup all together, freeze, and beat up. 93E. Apricot ice. 3 cupfuls of apricot cut into pieces. 1 cupful of sugar, 8 ounces. 1 cupful of water. The kernels of half the apricots. 2 whites of eggs. The ripest and sweetest apricots, if the fresh fruit be used, should be kept out. 1 cupful to be mixed in when the ice is finished. Stew the other 2 cupfuls and the peeled kernels in the water and sugar for a few minutes. Rub the fruit then with the back of a spoon through a strainer into the freezer along with the syrup. Freeze like ice cream, and when it is nearly finished, whip the 2 whites to a firm froth. Mix them in, and turn the freezer rapidly a short time longer. Stir in the cut apricots just before serving. Canned apricots can be used as well, and if in syrup, that can be mixed in also. Cumberland ices. Red cherry ice with nut cream. 2 freezers required. 94. Red cherry ice. 2 pints of sweet red or black cherries. 2 pints of water. 1½ pounds of sugar. Mash the fruit raw and thoroughly so as to break the stones, and strain the juice through a fine strainer into the freezer. Boil the cherry pulp with some of the sugar and water to extract the flavor from the kernels, and mash that also through the strainer. Add the other pint of water and the sugar and freeze. Use no egg whites and only beat that ice enough to make it even and smooth. 95. Hickory nut ice cream. 1 pound of either pecan or hickory nut kernels. 12 ounces of sugar. 1 quart of rich cream or milk. 1 tablespoonful of burnt sugar coloring. Pick over the kernels carefully that there be no fragments of shells to make the cream gritty. Then pound them into a mortar with part of the sugar and a few spoonfuls of milk or other fluid. Only a few can be pounded effectually at a time. Mix the milk with the pulp thus obtained, the rest of the sugar and caramel coloring enough to make it like coffee and cream, and run it through a strainer into the freezer. Freeze as usual and beat smooth with a paddle, then pack down with more ice to freeze firm. Line the molds with the cherry ice and fill the middle with the cream, or dish the ice as a border in shallow glasses with the cream piled in the center. Cape May ices. Burnt almond ice cream and orange ice. 96. Almond bisque. Take 1 pound of sugar. 12 ounces of sweet almonds. 2 ounces of bitter almonds. Blanch the almonds. Split them and put them in a slack oven to dry and acquire a light yellow color. Put the sugar in a kettle on the fire without any water and stir it till it is all melted and of the color of golden syrup or light molasses. Then put in the hot almonds, stir gently to mix, and pour the candy on a large platter. When cold, pound the candy quite fine. Put it into 3 pints of rich milk. Set it on the fire, and when it boils, add the beaten yolks of 10 eggs. Strain the burnt almond custard thus made into a freezer and freeze as usual and beat light. 97. Orange ice. 3 pints of water, 1 pound of sugar, 5 or 6 oranges according to size, 1 lemon, juice only, if the oranges are sweet, 4 whites of eggs. Make a thick syrup of the sugar and very little water. Peel half the orange. Divide them each in 12 or more by pulling apart the natural divisions and dropping the pieces of orange in the boiling syrup. Grate the yellow zest of the other 3 oranges into a bowl and squeeze in the juice. Then pour the syrup from the scalded orange slices into the bowl through the strainer and keep the pieces on ice to be mixed in at the last. Add the water and the lemon juice to the orange syrup in the bowl, strain, and freeze. Beat in the whipped whites as usual, and when finished, stir in the sugared fruit. This ice is cream white, tinged with the orange zest and juice. Use the burnt almond cream for the outside and fill with the orange ice. 98. Chocolate ice cream. Use only 3 or 4 ounces of the common unsweetened chocolate to a gallon of cream or boiled custard. Chocolate cream is generally too strongly flavored for the majority. The foreign vanilla chocolate is about half sugar and more, of course, can be used. Boil the chocolate in some milk with sugar added. Strain it into the cream and flavor with vanilla besides. Beat the ice cream to make it bright and rich colored. Melted chocolate cannot be mixed at once in cold cream as it sets and makes trouble. It must be considerably diluted first. 99. Coffee ice cream. Make with pure, sweet cream only, and 1 pint of very strong, clear coffee to 3 quarts. Sugar as usual, 8 ounces to a quart. The best coffee for this purpose is made by steeping coarsely ground coffee in cold water overnight and not boiling it at all. Hot coffee from the urn will never answer if taken when fresh made and not inky. Curacao and maraschino ice creams. 100. For combinations with strawberry and pineapple ices, use a cupful of curacao to 3 quarts of cream or custard. Color the cream café au lait with 2 ounces of sugar, burnt to the color of golden syrup and then dissolved in milk. Beat the ice cream to make it gold color. Use the same proportion of maraschino and pure cream and beat the ice cream to whiteness. Sweet dreams.